Hey, whole Bible readers, welcome to week 32. We are progressing. I think we're about 6 weeks into the second half as I make it out, so we're getting there. And we're coming near, not quite to, but near the end of the Old Testament. Now, we may be faking you out a little bit because we are reading this week the short book that is at the end of our Old Testaments as we find them in English. We're wrapping up with the prophets with the last book of the 12 minor prophets. The book of Malachi. So Malachi is writing in the later period of the exile, about 100 years after the first wave of exiles have come back. The temple has been rebuilt, but as we've learned from Ezra and Nehemiah and Esther, things are not going great for the exiles, just as they aren't going great for the people who are back in the place they were taken, like Esther. The temple's there, but it's a hard life. And what Malachi shows us is that Judah is again unfaithful, corrupt, and cynical, just as their forebears were. Malachi then addresses those issues, exposing the people's unfaithfulness and calling them to renewal and to hope. He's really saying, if you will just do what God is calling you to do, you're going to experience a different kind of life. Now, as you're reading here, you're going to hear a typical prophetic call to faithfulness and some things that are very easy for us to apply directly in our own situation. But you're also going to hear something that is very hopeful about the future. You're going to hear that there's going to come someone who is going to prepare the people for the coming of the Lord to rule over them. And the book is going to end by saying God has more for Israel than just the Torah, that God's reign is coming. And of course, all of this is pointing us towards Jesus. This is one story that leads to Jesus. Well, then we're going to go to what we might think of as the real ending of the Old Testament, because in the Hebrew Bible, the last books are actually 1st and 2nd Chronicles. Well, you might think, why are these books at the end? And what are these books anyway? Because I've hardly ever read from these books. Well, there's a reason that you haven't read them very often, unless you have. The reason is that they are a rewrite of Samuel Kings. And the rewrite is done during the period, the post-exilic period. Okay, Samuel Kings prepared us to understand how Israel ended up in exile. Chronicles rewrites the material to give the post-exilic people hope for the future because their present has been so disappointing. So it puts an emphasis in the rewriting of the history on the coming of a king, and the king is one who will build the temple. Now, we knew about this before, but Chronicles really zeroes in on that. And so it gives us emphasis first on a genealogy, and I apologize for this. You've got a lot of chapters of names to read at the beginning. But think of this as the story so far, because it's taking us through the experience of Israel, beginning with Adam and taking us all the way up to the time of David and then beyond. It's going to put an emphasis on the kingly line and the priestly line because this book is about the king who builds the temple. It's going to take out all the disappointing and negative stuff about David, because we're not thinking about David as a human being. We're thinking about David as a kind of an ideal, and especially as the one who prepares for the building of the temple. Then as we move from 1st Chronicles to 2nd Chronicles, which we will do, this was originally one book but broken into two for length. As we do that, we'll see the later kings described, and only the kings of the southern kingdom. Only the kings of Judah who are descendants of David, because we're thinking about who is the great king. Well, all of these kings are disappointments. Some of them are good and they're blessed, others are bad and they're cursed. We'll get some of the complexity that some of the bad ones weren't all bad and some of the good ones weren't all good. But in all of this, we're seeing how God is promising a return from exile with a better king, a better temple, and a faithful people. So all of this, what is it? It is a prelude to Jesus, the Son of David, who builds God's true house and who gathers a people for God from every nation, from his own nation and from others. So as you're reading here, I think we're going to build a kind of an anticipation for what is to come, even as we're being reminded of what is familiar about what we've already read. Okay, have a blessed time reading the whole Bible this week.